I'm Egbert, the owner of this station. Check out my website at egbert.com. That's EGGBURT, egbert.com. Now it's back to Brad and John. Check out their website at bjshow.co. The BJ Show? Come on, guys. Anyway, here's B and J.
And we're doing a little bit different this morning. John, do you hear me okay?
I hear you fantastically.
Okay, we are back at it. John is out doing taking kids to school duty this morning, and there's nothing more important than that. And John, I have to ask you, was this a Francis Howell run?
It was not.
It was not a Francis Howell run. Okay, because I'm thinking to myself, were you actually smoking some of that marijuana stuff in the line as you're... See, once again, let's for those of you who don't know what's going on with this, John, once again, having a child in the Francis Howell School District, John gets all the emails and things like that from the district?
Oh, yeah, the district communications, yeah. And
once upon a time, John got the email. Was that from the principal? Is that one for the superintendent?
It was from an elementary school that shall not be named.
That was complaining that the parents who were waiting for their kids or dropping their kids off in the drop-off lane were smoking the wacky tobacco, and once again they were reiterating the fact that even though it's legal in the state of Missouri now, it's not allowed on the Francis Howell campus, correct?
I think it was, now that I think about it, Brad, I believe it was from district administration, so it wasn't school specific. I think it was to elementary school parents. I think it was to everybody, so they didn't single out one particular school.
Which is crazy to me. I mean, once again, I guess it just shows you how old and out of touch I am. I'm thinking to myself, if that would have happened when I was in high school, the county police would have been there arresting people. You know what I'm saying?
They would have. And think of the percentage of those people, though, that let's say they're doing that in the carpool lane. Think of the percentage of the moms or the dads that choose to use that time to do it because they don't want to do it in front of their spouse. Like maybe they have a real naggy husband, or maybe they have a real naggy wife that's like, you smoke too much of the cannabis. So they think, oh, I'll volunteer to take the kids to school today because then I can hotbox and come back stoned and deal with that wench, you know?
But it's okay for them to do it in front of the kids, but not in front of their spouse, right? Okay, John, moving on. Did you, by any chance, watch the interview last night? Did you watch the...
I didn't. I only saw a reaction to it. I didn't actually watch the interview itself.
Okay, I did not watch the interview. I watched snippets of it, and I read a couple different reports of it, and... Is it true that it was only 18 minutes in length? Is that
18 minutes long? Yeah, I mean, I think that's about as long as she can go.
Does that in itself, doesn't that signal some problem? I mean,
It does, yeah.
Am I being like, and I'm not trying to be, rah-rah Trump. Trump could talk for an hour and a half, but she can only talk for 18 minutes. Somehow, this whole ballyhooed interview, which, once again, this is the first time she's had an interview in, 35 days or something like that. It's been a long time. Isn't it sort of bogus that the whole thing lasted 18 minutes?
Now, I didn't think of this analogy until you just brought it up. But this week I was at a child sporting event, Brad. And one particular team was tied with the other going into, there were like 8 minutes, and we had to decide whether to play another inning or not. And some of like, hey, we're probably not going to beat this team, so let's call it a game now. And then other people were like, well, maybe we could do well if we played longer. What I'm getting at, Brad, is that I don't know if this is so much Kamala herself and Walz himself as their team is like, look, every minute that Kamala is out there, we risk exposing her. And it would be political consultant malpractice to leave her out there for anything more than 15, God forbid, 20 minutes. It would be malpractice for us to let her be exposed like that.
Well, I guess that's the whole thing. And, there are going to be people that are going to say, you guys are just homers for Trump. But, man, I tell you what. I mean, I still say I go by my prediction that Kamala will win the presidency. And this is a perfect example of media manipulation in its highest form. And once again, there are people that will say, well, she doesn't have to talk to the media. Well, yeah, she doesn't, but isn't it any candidate's duty to essentially say, look, these are the points I'm running on. If elected, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I mean, we just went through the primaries where we saw this happen on a state level with so many different state senators and representatives who are up for election, things like that. We saw it on a national level with the Cori Bush slash a Wesley Bell thing. And I mean, once again, it's to the point where we have the informed voter, we have the low information voter, which is probably the majority of the people. Did you by any chance read the Quentin Tarantino interview where he talked about this the other day?
No, I only know about this from you because you mentioned it on the show.
Yeah, he said that, hey, look, he doesn't care. Just effing elect her, who cares what she really is far? Who cares if she can be a good president or not? Just effing elect her. We need to effing elect her. He used the F word about 14 million times.
Yeah.
And essentially, he was saying, we don't care about, to a certain extent. I mean, if you look at it this way, he was essentially saying, any candidate's qualifications. We don't care. We just need a Democrat in there. I mean, to me, that becomes very problematic because of the fact that in this country's history, we have had junctures, even in the state. The state used to have, Jay Nixon was a Democratic governor, and, people supported him, and a lot of the Republicans supported what he did, not all the time. But then again, it switched over. Now we have Republican governors, and to the point where if a person is really good and the electorate thinks that person can really help the state, city, country, municipality, whatever it is, people will cross over party lines to vote for that person. But in this case, it's just down to, hey, she's a Democrat, just vote for her, right? Isn't that the vibe?
Yeah, I think so. But if I was a Democrat, Brad, and if I was listening to this, I would say, yeah, well, there's people that aren't really Trump people that just say, well, we're sure as hell not continuing Biden-Harris, so Trump's not great, but let's just vote for him. I mean, there's certainly Republicans that hold their nose and vote for Trump.
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, and myself sort of included in that. I mean, and to the point where can I tell you something?
Sure.
I'm taking a new tact, and I don't want to be accused of anything. Does the name Jamie Dupree mean anything to you?
Jamie Dupree, no.
Jamie Dupree is a guy used to be on. Matter of fact, when we were running the Mouth, we ran the Neil Bort Show. The Neil Bort Show was run out of Atlanta, and Jamie Dupree was a corporate guy who worked for Cox Broadcasting, and he was a Washington, D.C. reporter. In other words, this is a radio and TV chain that had their own dedicated Washington, D.C. reporter. He lived in D.C. in the whole bit, and he was a really excellent reporter. And unfortunately, this is a very sad story. Once again, he primarily did radio. He got some kind of weird disease. I think he was some derivation of cancer or something like that, and he can't talk anymore. So he's still very much alive. But Jamie Dupree when you listen to Jamie, you never knew which candidate he was for, and he would freely admit he no longer voted anymore because of the fact that he said he did not want to be a hypocrite. He did not want to be the guy who was trying to be nonpartisan, non-candidate favored, and essentially on election day show up at the polls and vote for someone. So he decided not to vote anymore. So guess what? I'm taking the same pledge. I'm not voting anymore.
No way. Think of the time that you saved, Brad. Well, now it's going to be really hard come November for you to not vote, right?
No, I didn't.
On election day, you don't think it'll be hard for you?
No, I didn't vote in August. I didn't vote, and quite honestly, let's be honest. The August ballot was, maybe a couple races was pretty much everybody knew was going to happen. I mean, everybody knew that it was going to be Kehoe. Everybody knew it was going to be, you go through the whole thing. Just like you said, everybody knew it was going to be Ann Wagner. Everybody knew it was going to be Dr. Onder. I mean, it's just like, okay, we already know that. Okay. And once again, the November election, everybody knows it's going to be Mike Kehoe. Everybody knows it's going to be go through the Republican slate. Everybody knows it's going to be all those people.
That's true.
Everybody knows it's going to be Kamala Harris. Why vote?
Well, I don't know about in Missouri, it'll definitely be Donald Trump. So your point is your vote wouldn't matter. And you're right. In Missouri, it certainly wouldn't.
Yeah, one of those things. And I know it sort of sounds bad to sound like that, but I had a lot of respect for Jamie Dupree, and once again it was interesting because if you know Neil Bortz, he was obviously a very Republican, very conservative guy, and Neil was always trying to out him. Neil would say things like well, Jamie, what do you think of this guy? And Jamie Jamie could have been elected. Jamie could teach things to the Kamala Harris campaign because Jamie, under pressure, would always answer correctly that you had no idea which direction he was going. Which I think is the idea behind. The crazy thing about it is the interview last night. Everybody was so, oh my God, it's going to be a big interview. Trump does this every damn day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every damn day he's being interviewed and he's talking to people and stuff like that. It wouldn't surprise me if he ends up with Theo Von. You know what I'm saying?
I know. Yeah, well, yeah. And so, did you watch the interview that he did with Theo Von?
Well, yeah, it was. Anybody who doesn't know, how would you describe Theo Von? How would you describe who Theo Von is?
If you were to take, to just typecast a funny podcaster, and like a real podcaster, not someone with like 10 followers, but like a popular, funny podcaster, that's not a conventional Republican or even a conventional conservative. That's how I would typecast him. But like picture a kind of long-haired comedian who's just kind of a good old boy, and that's Theo Von. Yeah,
and once again, I think that's his calling card, is that he's the kind of guy that most people can identify with because he's not a slickster. He's not, he's not a handsome-looking dude. Oh, I shouldn't say that. But you know what I mean? He looks like the kind of guy you'd run into. You'd be sitting in a bar stool in a bar, and a guy would come up next to you and sit down. Hey, bud, what's going on? You're one of those kind of guys. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's a huge part of his appeal.
Right. But yet, do you think that Kamala Harris would ever sit down with Theo Von?
Oh, well, she can't because first of all, he would ask uncomfortable questions, and then she would have to think off the cuff. Now, the other thing is she's probably not going to get much better at this. So again, if you're on her campaign, why expose her to this? You have a mainstream media that's on your side that will cover for you. Don't let her make any mistakes.
Don't you think at some point this is going to backfire?
I don't know, and here's why, Brad. I think the number of undecided people are so few in the states that matter that it doesn't matter.
So everybody's already made up their mind.
Yeah, I think for the most part. And think of the states that are actually going to decide this. And then you have an even smaller universe of voters that actually matter. To your earlier point, our votes don't matter in Missouri because Trump's going to win huge.
Yeah, once again, and Keogh's going to win, and Bailey's going to win. I haven't heard Bailey on 97.1 that much anymore. I wonder why that is. He's.
I think because there's another station that has the new studios out in Wentzville, and I think he's being lured by them.
Is he really? Is he on Tracy's station?
Well, I think that he's got a thing in his contract that says that whoever has the newest studio is where he goes.
Can I tell you something interesting? Which and once again, I'm going to say this up front, and I mean no disrespect to Marc Cox. I have tremendous respect for Marc Cox. He was an excellent journalist when he was with Channel 4, and I think he does an excellent job. He's on the air against us right now in 97.1. If you want to tune over there, you can listen to him, okay? Him and I don't want to say we're friends, but we've met a few times, and
you're friendly. You would describe you're friendly with him.
Yeah, and we text back and forth from time to time. And matter of fact, it's interesting. Sometimes he'll say things on the show. I'll listen to a show, and he'll have a question or something. And crazy enough, I'll have the answer, and I'll send it to Mark here. And sometimes I'll send him articles and stuff like that. I told him he should have Mark McCluskey on the air on 97.1. He should interview Mark McCluskey. And he texted me back, he can't do that because Mark is on a competing station. He's on the refugee station. And there's a little bit of butthurt there because these are all the ex-97.1 guys who, some of them got fired from 97.1. The majority of them quit and walked across the street and now have started their own station. News Talk STL with what's his name? Jeff, that rings a bell. Jeff
His
Allen.
last name, he shares a last name with a former Cardinal pitcher named Neil.
Jeff Allen. Okay.
Yes.
So the interesting part of that is Nick Schroyer has his own show on Newstalk STL, and I hear him all the time on 97.1. I'm going like, okay.
So that says something. That says that Nick is of a level of importance in Mark Cox's mind that Mark McCluskey is not. And for all we know, Brad, maybe the Marks have some kind of interpersonal heat between them, and Marc Cox doesn't want to say that. Who knows?
It's just like the thing that went, and see, I think this is so petty in the radio business. When Bill Eigel, when Tracy first went on the air, Bill Eigel used to be on 97.1 all the time. They had him interviewed all the time. Then when he goes over to Tracy's station, he was persona non grata at 97.1. They wouldn't let him on the air anymore. I'm thinking to myself, okay, once again, that's so much inside baseball because
it seems petty, but maybe that's a corporate directive, Brad. Maybe that's not the hosts themselves. Maybe that's the owners.
I think it's
petty, regardless. But I wouldn't pin that on a host rather than management.
So I'm going to ask you questions. It's 20 minutes. We're into our break right now.
I'm ready to do Skype right now.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. Okay, so let's take a break, and you Skype me, and we'll switch over to that, and we'll move on down the road. How's that?
Sounds great.
How's that sound to you? It is
fantastic.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?